It's a great honor and privilege to be here, and it's, of course, a historical day. Vani Foundation has chosen a Spanish scholar who has dedicated most of his life to India, to the text of the Indian traditions, and to bring those texts to Spanish, to the Spanish language and the Spanish-speaking world, which is the second most important international language. So we are very proud. Congratulations, Oscar. It's a great day for Indo-Spanish relations. It's a great day for all the translators before, now, and probably after you, because it's the first such award that goes for a non-Indian language. So let's begin this conversation discussing your personal journey. How did you come up with, first of all, the idea of going deep into a language which is at the base of Indian philosophy, Indian thought, Sanskrit? Did it not scare you? How did you get involved living at BHU, having the opportunity to be there with your wife? I mean, it doesn't come easy, I suppose, to say, no, I'm going to stay here and do a dictionary in Sanskrit to Catalan.
Thanks, Guillermo, very much. Really a pleasure to be here and feel so honored to receive this award. Actually, I remember when I started learning Sanskrit, I say I will never make a Sanskrit dictionary. That I was pretty clear that I was never going to do such kind of work. But, you know, life takes you so many places. And I would like to say that for me, studying in a place like Varanasi was really something unique. Because I was combining, you know, I was studying in a modern Indian university, and there they teach you Sanskrit according to modern methods, according to Western methods, basically. Even if you are in an Indian university, they use the critical textual historical method of learning Sanskrit. But at the same time, for me, it's one of my most important experience in my life is that I was able to learn with the pandits. So my routine there basically was I used to go to university 4-5 hours in the morning, and then every evening I used to go with two gurus that I had, Shri Shastri and Shri Narayan Mishra, and then I would sit with them at his home and spend 1 hour, 2 hours reading those texts that I had to read in the university. Of course, all my classmates were Indians. I was the only foreigner in that class. The classes were in Hindi, which I was learning at that time. So I had to make a double effort to be able to learn against my Indian companions. No? But I would like to say that the experience of learning with a traditional pandit, it's very different from what you get at the university. Because the pandits, they interiorize the knowledge. Say, Atmasat Kardete, the knowledge. And that's a very different experience, because when they teach you with the books, they memorize the books, and they begin to regurgitate all this wisdom, all this practical knowledge of Sanskrit traditional, which they have, and that you will never find in a Western type like of a scholar.
I think this is very important. He is a man from Barcelona, travels with his wife deep into the Indian ethos. I remember, on a personal note, I happened to find out that there was this Spaniard in Benares studying at BHU through Alvaro, who's sitting here. He runs a bookshop in Godolia. And we went to see him. We spent a whole day at his house with his wife and child, and we kept on saying, when can we meet Oscar Pujol? He said, oh, he's busy working on his text. And then he suddenly showed up, and he was so self-immersed. He didn't. Years later, when I reminded him, he didn't even remember meeting me, though we became friends later. But this is an important point. This is not a scholar that was nurtured in the academic circles of, say, Germany or France or the Anglo-Saxon or the American universities. I mean, not that I have anything against those academic circles, but it is the insider perspective. It's someone who is able to follow the Guru Shishya tradition. So in that sense, Oscar, whom do you consider your gurus or your iconic figures? Is there any Western Indological tradition that you think can be considered also your source? Or do you think we should distinguish between the Orientalist the Orientalist phase of Indology, and there's a modern new Indology?
Well, we are all sons of Western Indology. That's clear, no? And Western Indology is really has produced incredible work all through, no? But all of us, all Western Indologies depend on primary sources which are, are in the possession of Indian people who really know the text in a way that we don't know. So both traditions are very important for me. And I think in today's world, to reach a kind of harmony between both traditions is very important. And I try to do that in my dictionary. I produce 2 dictionaries of Sanskrit. One is Sanskrit Catalan, which is my mother tongue. The other one, Sanskrit Spanish, which is also my mother tongue. And what I try to do in these dictionaries have a unique thing, which is, for the first time, you have both etymology, 2 kinds of etymologies for a Sanskrit word. One is the etymology by Western grammarians, following the principles of historic philology. This is the famous etymological Sanskrit dictionary done by Meyerhofer in Germany. It's a wonderful dictionary that tells the origin of Sanskrit words. And the other etymology is etymology according to Panini, according to Amar Ghosh, according to Sanskrit Pandits. And it is very interesting to put both etymologies together. Often they are the same, but sometimes they are different etymologies, okay? And now it's good to know why and what both the Western historical philologies, and that's a very important view, the historical point of view, and what the traditional Sanskrit grammarians have to say about the word. I put you one example and you'll understand what I am trying to say. The word tulasi, which everybody knows what it means, the tulsi plant, so famous. If you go according to Panini, means basically a tulania. It's from tula, which means equilibrium, balance. And this says that tulsi plant, which is so sacred, is tulsi because it's a tulania. You cannot compare to any other plant. Okay, that's etymology according to Panini. If you go to the Meyerhofer dictionary, the etymological dictionary, he will say, on the contrary, that tulasi is a word that comes from Tamil. It's a very interesting thing. And he will give you examples of the Tamilian words of all the cognates that make the Sanskrit tulasi. So you can say, okay, Western grammarians or Western philologists are wrong. And sometimes historical philologists will say Indian grammarians are wrong because they don't use the diachronical method. What I have done is put both of them together. Both of them together for you to consider, I say 90% of the times are the same, are correct. So putting both traditions together is one of my main concerns, not only of the dictionary, but of all the translations that usually I am doing, to try to put together these words.
So this brings us into the analysis of what is translation. When you do a translation, and of course we will hear later what his contribution is, but just to give you some glimpses, Oscar has translated Shankara, Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, his latest work, but he's also helped contributed a lot in bringing a dialogue in place between the philosophies, Western philosophies, and Indian philosophies, bringing philosophies together, ideas, how they transact, how they have a dialogue. So when you do a translation, we use words. And words are, as according to some translators, all words are metaphors which are already traveling in meaning. So when you bring the meaning across, what is your idea or your practice of translation? How important is the context? How important is it to bring the idea across rather than the word? Because there are some words, they are so synthetic in Sanskrit, it's impossible to translate. So how do you go about that? What is your theory and practice of translation? If you may sum it up in 1.5 or 2 minutes. What is the key for you? And there are so many ideas and theories, but what is your take on that?
Well, I wish I had some time to explain. Just to mention, and that's a very interesting thing, there is a school of grammarians in ancient India that says the words are meaningless, that only sentence has a meaning, because only the full meaning of a word only realizes in a sentence. But saying that, I would like to say something, I have 2 minutes, about translation. I do really think that translation is an impossible thing. It's impossible to translate. That's the first thing, no? And what the translator does is making possible the impossible thing. And why it's impossible to translate? And allow me to say, this is very interesting. According to Sanskrit rhetoricians, literary texts are of 3 kinds. One would be texts where, and I will say it in Sanskrit, Shabda Pradhan. You can understand, many of you, Hindi. Shabda Pradhan means text where the words, the form is more important than the meaning. Okay? And this text is typically the Veda. The Veda is Shabda Pradhan because the words, the sound of the words is more important, because if you recite it well, it will have an effect in the sacrifice. Okay? So Veda is Shabda Pradhan. Shabda is everything. Now, second, philosophy is Artha Pradhan, which means that the meaning is more important than the words. That's philosophy. You can translate concepts there and the words. And now comes the 3rd kind of text. And this is very important. This is very important because it has to do a lot with Jaipur Literary Festival. The 3rd kind of text is one which is called, you know which word Sanskrit and Hindi uses for literature? Many of you know, of course, but for those who don't know, it uses Sahitya. Sahitya, what means Sahitya? That's literature. Sahitya means togetherness. And which togetherness is expressed in Sahitya? Sahitya is expressing the togetherness, which you cannot separate, of word and meaning, of Shabda and Artha. So if the Veda is Shabda Pradhan, if the Shastra is Artha Pradhan, Kavya, Sahitya is Ubhaya Pradhan. Both of them are important. And you cannot separate form from meaning. Okay, that's because Kavya, literature, separating form from meaning, it's very difficult. Okay, so I say that translation is an impossibility because it's like a surgical intervention. First, you get the original language and you separate word from meaning, okay? And then the translator has to reconstitute the broken body of the text of the original language and produce a new body, which will be the original language, okay? But without the scars of that, and that's a miracle. And the proof that it's a miracle, and I will conclude here because I'm telling you, the proof that it is a miracle is that translations, in spite of being an impossibility, finally convey the original meaning. I myself was introduced to the Gita and my love for Sanskrit reading a bad translation in English when I hardly knew any English. And
Please recite to end. Just recite perhaps a sloka or a phrase that has most inspired you the most. Can you just recite? Or just any verse or any. Can you just recite one verse or one sentence?
I will recite. I will do it again. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha agayurindriya ramo mogham partha sajivati.
In Spanish?
In Spanish?
In Spanish.
Let's finish.
Okay. Big round of applause for Oscar. Any questions for the awardee from our distinguished audience? So we have time for questions. Okay.
A quick one because of the time. Belonging to a poetry club, I always find difficult in translating, let's say, Pablo Neruda to Hindi or to English. What is your opinion of translating poetry, which can be quite different? And then Guillermo can also take this because he has been doing some of this work.
Well, I think now the way we translating is very different as we did translate, say, 100 years ago. No, we learn a lot, and translation is. And many people told me that sometimes translating poetry is easier than translating prose. I don't know if you heard about that. Because poetry, even, I translated the Gita now into Spanish, and I began with prose. And middle of the way, I changed it into free verse, which is not I am not a poet, actually, no? But when you do it in verse, even it is a free form, you have more freedom with syntax, with the order of the words, with the way you combine words. And that, which you can do in poetry, you cannot do in prose, and sometimes it works very well. The best translators of poetry that I know, they told me that they try to be as literal as possible while translating poetry. And we have Philip here, Ludgendorff, which has translated an impossible word to translate, which is the Ramcharitmanas, and he has a translation into English. And if you follow each verse, you will see that it tallies, and that he's doing a translation which is both literal and sounding well. And it's an art, and it's possible, and the metric form helps it.
There was another, thank you. There's another question. Please get a mic. Can you get a mic, please?
Please do the translation in Spanish for the sloka that you just.
Que leas una en español, lea una de aquí.
The one. Okay. Well,
Thank you for asking, because I had earlier asked him to do that.
Well, I will put the Sanskrit also, because I know that evam pravartitam chakram, evam pravartitam chakram. Into Spanish.
Yes.
Oh. Okay, I was going to.
You still know Spanish, do you?
No, I know, but I was going into. But nobody will understand my explanation.
No, we will. We want to
See,
hear it
okay,
also.
okay,
The
okay.
incarnation you're talking about, to hear how it is embodied in another language, how it travels.
Okay. So, that's fine. Let me search for the translation.
It's so important to hear the sound of a language, and some languages really bring you to the landscape of the country when you hear it.
Okay, now we are there. I will change the verse. This is even more beautiful in Spanish, okay? So if you give me 2 minutes, I will recite again. And in Sanskrit, first in Sanskrit, no. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, nachainam kledayantiapo, nashoshayati marutaha, achedyo yamadahyo yamakledyo shosha evacha nitya sarvagata sthanur achaloyam sanatanaha. And I read in Spanish now. These are 2 shlokas from 2nd chapter, speaking about the immortality of the soul. And in Spanish it reads, las espadas no lo hieren, el fuego no lo quema, las aguas no lo mojan y el viento no lo agosta. Es invulnerable, incombustible, impermeable, inmarcesible, es eterno, ubicuo, permanente, inamovible y primordial.
See, that's the beauty of translation, because now the translation is also immortal. It'll survive, hopefully, if books survive and texts survive. Any other comment over there? Yes, can you hand him over the mic, please?
A quick question I want to ask. 2 questions, actually. One is, what motivated you to do this? Like, what was that turning point where you decided that I wanted to translate this language, not this, but like the Sanskrit languages, the work of Sanskrit into Spanish. What was that turning point? And other from my girl, she wanted to ask, have you translated or heard about the works of previous writers like Kabir and all? Yeah.
Well, as I told you, it was a line from Bhagavad Gita that inspired me very much. I was 20 years old when I read that, and made me decide that I will learn the language to read that book in the original, because I was already aware that translations are impossible things and are miracles happening, okay? And I only translated 2 poems of Kabir. That's not Sanskrit, that's medieval Hindi, that's Awardee and a mix of languages. And Kabir is great, but I translated several things like the Upanishads. I translated also Atharva Veda, in the Prithvi Sukta from Atharva Veda. And I translated also perhaps the book which, now the Gita is very recent, but the book which is having the biggest success now, not only in Spain, in the Spanish-speaking world, is the Yoga Sutras, which is going by the 7th edition. And that's a very difficult text. And also, I translated also erotic poetry, the Chauri Surata Panchasika, which is translated into Spanish as the Los Poemas del Amor Furtivo. It's translated into that's poetry, and that was, so basically is that. I'm very interested basically in Yoga Sutras, in Upanishads, and also in Shankara, no? In Shankara also I did a monography on Shankara, which is this one, and I translate some passages of him, no? But what inspired me really was that line from the Gita, a line that basically was spoken about, and I think it's a very important. Huh?
What is the line?
The line is, I said it earlier, no? Evam pravartitam chakran. It's a line that says, that you should discover. Now everybody talks about dharma, dharma, dharma. We see dharma, it's a very important thing. Even in the West, it's become. But Gita also speaks about swadharma. And swadharma, it's our own dharma. And the Gita, it's all about finding one's own dharma. And that's very important, because Arjuna is confused. Arjuna lost track of his dharma, and he doesn't know what is his swadharma anymore. And that's very important. The Gita made me discover my swadharma, which is the dharma of a scholar, of a translator, basically a philologist. And I follow these lines and I think that's the beauty of the Gita. The Gita still can help you to discover your own swadharma.
Thank you so much. Again, we're so proud, and we wish we had more Oscar Pujols in Spain or in Mexico or in Colombia. He's done an incredible job by bringing all these traditions to Spain and to our cultures of the Spanish-speaking world. And we're so thankful. It's a big thanks to you, Oscar.
Thanks to you,
and also to
Guillermo.
the publisher, Agustin Paniger.
Yeah, wish you was.
Thank you.
A big thank you from the community of translators to Vani Foundation for recognizing and acknowledging the work that translators do. And congratulations to Oscar Pujol for this remarkable, a magnificent achievement, really. I don't think I have the words to explain how wonderful it is. I am now very happy to read to you the citation for the award for 2024 to Oscar Pujol, from Sanskrit to Espanol. Oscar Pujol received his doctorate in Sanskrit from Banaras Hindu University and has had a lifelong engagement with India. He has been the director of the Cervantes Institutes of New Delhi and Rio de Janeiro, and director of the educational programs of Casa Asia. He is the author of many books, among which is the, forgive me for not getting the pronunciation right for this one, Dictionary Sanskrit Catalia, Dictionary Sanskrit Espanol, La Illusion Fecunda, and Samskara's Thought. His latest translation of Bhagavad Gita from Sanskrit into Spanish version, La Bhagavad Gita, is published and has been received very well. He can be described as the Karma Yogi and Bhasha Premi for his dedication to Sanskrit language. Congratulations again.
This year is a year of a lot of good changes. We decided that in the award ceremony, we should include the language from which the translator has translated to which the translator is going to translate. So, for the first time ever, the citation would be also read in the language into which the translator has translated. To help us with the citation, I have Vidushi, Professor Mridul Kirti ji, to join us on stage and read out the Sanskrit translation. Mridul ji.
आस्कर पुजोला बनारस साहित्य हिंदू विश्वविद्यालयात संस्कृत विषये डॉक्टरेट पदवी प्राप्य भारतेन सह आजीवनं सम्बद्धः अस्ति। सा नई दिल्ली रियो डी जेनेरियो नगरयोः सर्वान्टिस् संस्थाया निदेशकः कासा एशिया संस्थाया शैक्षिक कार्यक्रम निदेशकः च अस्ति। अनेकानि पुस्तकानि तेन लिखितानि सन्ति, यथा संस्कृत काताला भाषायाः प्रथमा शब्दकोशः, ला इल्यूजन फेकुंडा शंकराचार्यस्य दर्शन शास्त्राधारिता स्पेन भाषायाः ग्रन्थः। संस्कृत भाषायाः प्रतिसमर्पणस्य कृते सः कर्मयोगी भाषाप्रेमी इति परिभाषयितुं शक्यते। तस्य भगवद्गीतायाः नवीनतमः अनुवादः संस्कृततः स्पेन भाषायाः संस्करणं प्रतिला भगवद्गीता इति नामा प्रकाशिता अस्ति। धन्यवाद।
बहुत धन्यवाद मृदुल जी। I now request Namita ji, Sanjoy ji, and the dignitaries on the stage to please present the trophy, the citation, and the... Yes, please. And the check. Can I please have the trophy on stage, please? Yes, please. The insignia created by ace artist Shri M.F. Hussain, the emblem of the unity of the country through languages, 8th Vani Foundation Distinguished Translator Award to Oscar Pujol. Sir. Citation. Citations. Please, 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 please. Present the citation. Sanskrit, English, and Spanish. Thank you, Jaipur Literature Festival, Teamwork Arts, for creating these beautiful bridges across the globe through literature and language. I now request His Excellency to say a few words to solemnize our ceremony. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, first of all. Congratulations to Oscar. And let me say that I am not here only as the representative, official representative of the Spanish government, the Spanish embassy. I'm also here personally as an admirer of Oscar Pujol. It's for me a great honor to work with him in the embassy, to work with him in the Instituto Cervantes, and we have had a marvelous collaboration, cooperation. There is 3 years, more or less, we have been together here. Speaking about translation, let me say few words. The first thing is that translation is important because you need knowledge. And as you have seen, Oscar has knowledge about India, about Sanskrit, about Hindi also, but also about Spain. So knowledge for him is the basis for all the work he has done. The second thing is that translation is also a question of consciousness, because you must be aware that every time you translate something to other language, you are enlarging the sense of the word culture. If you look at the past, you Indian citizens and we Europeans, Spanish citizens, we could consider ourselves cultivated if we knew, in our case, Cervantes, Shakespeare, and other authors. We didn't need to know Indian authors or other authors. So every time we receive a translation, we enlarge the sense, because in order to be cultivated, we need, of course, to know Cervantes and Shakespeare and other Western authors. But we need also to know Bhagavad Gita. If not, we are not cultivating, and the other way around. Knowing your own classics permitted in the past to be considered cultivated, but now we need to enlarge this sense of culture, and Oscar contributed to this enlargement of the word and the meaning of the word culture. And the third aspect is generosity, because when translators do their work, at the end, they are creating the conditions for one thing, which is the most important thing, and personally I feel is the stage in which the relations of Spain and the Spanish language with Indian languages is really now. And the situation is that we need more Indian voices in Spanish language countries, and I would like to feel and to know that you also need more Spanish language authors in India. So the generosity of translators is to create conditions to make their work unnecessary, in the sense that we have to learn these languages, we are obliged to learn these languages, and we have to continue establishing these relations. In this sense, and this is the final idea, in this sense, we are very happy to have in India many departments of Spanish language in universities, and to have also Spanish language in schools. But I ask you, and if you permit me, I beg you to have these same departments in our universities. We need your languages. We need your knowledge. And in this sense, as I have told, knowledge, consciousness, and generosity are the three values that will permit us to strengthen our relations. Thank you very much, and congratulations again, Oscar.
Thank you, respected Ambassador. I now request the Chairman of Vani Foundation, Shri Arun Maheshwari, to please deliver the vote of thanks.
His Excellency, José María Ridao Dominic, इस पुरस्कार की प्रेरणा और जूरी की वरिष्ठतम सदस्य आदरणीय नमिता गोखले जी, जूरी श्री अरुणावा सिन्हा, यतीन्द्र मिश्र, टीम वर्क आर्ट के संस्थापक और पुरस्कार के सह आयोजक श्री संजॉय राय जी, सुसाना तोरेस, मार सांचो, गुरलेमा रॉड्रिक और पुरस्कार विजेता श्री आस्कर पुजोर जी। वाणी फाउंडेशन डिस्टिंग्विश्ड ट्रांसलेटर अवार्ड के 8वें वर्ष समारोह में आप सभी का होना हमारे लिए गौरव की बात है। मैं वाणी प्रकाशन ग्रुप और वाणी फाउंडेशन की ओर से आप सभी का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। वाणी फाउंडेशन की स्थापना वाणी प्रकाशन के 50वें वर्ष में हुई थी। फाउंडेशन के प्रेरणा स्रोत श्री गुलजार साहब और नमिता जी ने हमेशा से अनुवादकों के सम्मान में अपने जीवन का एक महत्वपूर्ण अंश समर्पित किया है। अब हमारे लिए आदरणीय हैं। आपके इसी समर्पण के साथ जुड़कर वाणी फाउंडेशन डिस्टिंग्विश्ड ट्रांसलेटर अवार्ड का सफ़र आज 8वें साल में पहुंचा है। इस सफ़र में श्री संदीप भटौरिया, नीता गुप्ता जी, श्री अशोक वाजपेयी का भी धन्यवाद। आप सभी सम्मानित विद्वानों ने पुरस्कार की जूरी को जिम्मेदारी से इतने वर्षों तक संभाला। आज श्री ऑस्कर पुरुजो जी को सम्मानित कर हम भारतीय दर्शन के वैश्विक स्वरूप को सम्मानित कर रहे हैं। उपस्थित सभी श्रोताओं, विद्वान मित्रों, आप सभी कार्यक्रम में आए, आपका आभार। ग्रेसियस।